It's Tuesday, May 12th, 2020, and welcome to the Rebel News live stream. I'm David Menzies, and I'm joined by my fellow guest co-host, Sheila Gunn-Reid. And folks, normally you see the big boss man himself in this space at this hour. That would be Ezra Levent, but Ezra's really busy working on a project, so every Tuesday and Thursday, until further notice, we are here. And now Sheila is going to explain the nuts and bolts of what it is we're going to attempt to do today.
Well, looks like you're attempting to hide your shame under that Dick Tracy hat. I don't know if a fedora is worse than having your hairdo right now. It's 6 of one, half a dozen of another. But what we're doing here today, besides me poking a little fun at my friend David, is we're hosting the daily live stream. And it gives our viewers an opportunity to interact with each other in the very lively live chat that happens to the side or the bottom of the screen, depending on how your Skype is set or your YouTube is set up. But it also gives David and I a chance to talk live about the issues of the day, and it gives our viewers at home a chance to support the work we do willingly, unlike what the CBC forces us all to do. And you can throw a little money into what's called the super chat, and it'll highlight your comment. We'll read your comment. We might comment on your comment. We might answer a question. But it's how you can support the work that we do here at Rebel News. And I think we have an interesting new graphic that we're trying to test out today. So bear with us as we do that. Also, bear with me if my Skype goes, see, look at that. That looks great. Should I read that, Justin? Maybe I should. I should probably read it. But anyway, bear with me if my Skype goes down. I was having some problems in the morning meeting this morning, which might leave you with David all alone for a few minutes. So just be patient with David and be patient with me if we have technical difficulties.
Well, Sheila, in regard to the fedora, the hair is completely out of control. I'm more from merely body by Tim Hortons to hair by Chia Pet as the double play. And it frightens and confuses CBC reporters, evidently. They run away from my hair. So I've been stigmatized into covering it. And if there's anyone out there that can tell me about a black market barber, I mean, there's $50 in it for you. This is ridiculous. And I'm sure there's a safe way, to get a haircut. I mean, it's not an Ebola pandemic, for goodness sakes. But Sheila, before your Skype goes down, and hopefully it doesn't, why don't we just jump right to your excellent piece on the Edmonton legislature protest? It was indeed very telling that I don't think there was any mainstream media there covering this, certainly not the parts that you covered, where suddenly it looked like one of the protesters was, through no will of his own, mastering yogic flying and being carted off. I'm wondering if Mr. Producer can run a clip so we can just set up this story here.
Cited Section 73(1) of the Public Health Act when they arrested Cody. But Section 73 details penalties, not what the offense was. Just look for yourself. It says penalty. Why couldn't these cops tell this guy what he did wrong when he was doing it wrong? Now, I reached out to the Edmonton City Police media liaison first thing this morning. I wanted to know what happened to the 3 men that were arrested and detained at the legislature for protesting the government. I wanted to know if they have been fined or charged and what the amounts of those fines are. It's an easy enough question, or so I thought. I waited, and right before I started filming this, someone finally got back to me. Look at this. EPS charged one individual with 2 offenses under the Public Health Act's pandemic orders for obstruction and participating in a gathering of more than 15 people. These charges involve a mandatory court appearance. It is my understanding that 2 other individuals at the gathering were also dealt with under the Public Health Act orders by peace officers. I would recommend you confirm details regarding any other potential charges through them. So I did just that. I reached out to the sheriff's office and I sent them an email to find out what happened to the other 2 people arrested by the sheriffs under the Public Health Act. Now, when or if I ever do hear back from the sheriff's office, I'll be sure to let you know and update the story. We're supposed to be the freest province in Canada. This is Alberta, strong and free. It's in our motto. Yet 3 cops, Jason Kenney's police force, in fact, picked up and dragged away a man who was sitting alone in an empty fountain protesting government laws made by the stroke of a pen by the unelected chief public health officer. That doesn't feel very strong and free or democratic to me, for that matter. And it wasn't just this guy. Remember, there were 2 other guys also arrested for much the same thing and hauled away by cops.
You know, Sheila, when I look at that clip and I hear what you're saying there, was there any actual legitimate law these protesters were charged with? Or is this a matter of, because I'm having a bit of deja vu here of you and Kian going to that British Columbia courthouse and the sheriffs there quoting a regulation that did not exist in order to bar you from covering the Jonathan Yaniv trial. So what is going on here, my friend?
Well, I pulled up actually the public health order, and that's the problem here. These public health orders come out and they alter the Public Health Act, and they bring into full force of the law these things, and they are not being argued in the legislature building. They're being made with the stroke of a pen, much like Justin Trudeau's gun grab, by an unelected person, the chief public health officer. And there is a prohibition right now in Alberta on gatherings of larger than 15 people. But here's the thing. And Jason Kenney, later on, yesterday afternoon, and I do cover that in my story, he came out and issued a statement saying, whoa, we got to figure out what went on here, because it's pretty clear that everybody there is doing their best to obey the public health order by staying 6 feet away from each other. You can see everybody's spread out far apart. Yes. People who came together stayed together, and everybody else spread out. So, I mean, it could have been, just a bunch of individual people gathering down there. If you look at the way that they were standing, and Jason Kenney did say, that he's looking for an explanation from the sheriffs and from the city police about why these arrests happened, because he's expecting our peace officers to use common sense when making these arrests. And from my point of view, that absolutely didn't happen over the weekend. They went and they grabbed 3 agitators, the 3 loudest, crankiest people. That's what they did, thinking that they could put a stop to this protest immediately if they grabbed the people with the megaphone, the people who were making the most amount of noise. But here's the thing, being cranky on a megaphone is not illegal down at the legislature. That's where we hold protests in this province. So it looks like they cracked down on 3 guys, hoping the whole thing would disperse. But I mean, they did not ever balance the rights of free assembly and free speech with a public health order at all.
And what's more, Sheila, as you addressed later on in your video, what was perversely ironic was the fact that there were almost as many members of law enforcement as there were protesters, and lo and behold, the camera does not lie, they were standing much closer, certainly within the 2-meter safety zone, than the protesters were. So, I mean, you scratch your head and you're thinking, what is going on here? First of all, I think this was a grotesque overreach by law enforcement. Yeah. And secondly, they clearly don't practice what they preach.
No, there were a lot of cops there who had masks, but I would say an equal amount of cops didn't have masks on. They were all standing in close quarters. And if your concern is the public transmission of a communicable disease, having a half a dozen cops move in on a guy who's sitting in a fountain alone, nowhere near anybody else, and picking him up with your hands and then moving him towards another crowd of police, that hardly seems commonsensical if you're worried about communicable disease. None of it made any sense, but it looked like they just wanted the protest to end. And so they just grabbed the 3 cranks and hoped that everybody else would get the message and disperse. Basically, they grabbed 3 guys to send a message to everybody else. You better shut up or you're going to join these 3 guys too.
Well, it looks like we found 3 more fight the fines cases if we can track these people down, Sheila. And by the way, I think I speak for you and Kian and Ezra when I say that we're not anti-law enforcement, far from it, but we have to call it like we see it. When there is overreach, like what happened at the Edmonton legislature, what happened disgracefully in Lethbridge with that 19-year-old girl with the Star Wars costume on, what happened in North Bay with one of your Fight the Fines case of a mother being handcuffed and thrown in a cruiser and searched in front of her 5-year-old. That's terrible policing, and I don't think it's the norm. I think these are the exceptions. And I always look for an excuse. I have a little example on video of some law enforcement overreach. And it's comical. It actually made the video, but it says a lot about what some police will do, including even making up excuses and laws in order to get their authority through. And it happened way back in 2012, Sheila. It was, I think, my first assignment for Sun News prior to the morning show debuting, and it was a goofy thing we were doing in front of a police division. And if Mr. Producer has that queued up, you're not going to believe this one, folks. Check it out.
Something light, like garlic, There. Now, see, just do a little like that, sort of in the mouth area. Rosemary's a fantastic spice. Oh, Bob's your uncle. And see, there you go. This is mustard seed. This is where the mustard you get at the ballpark comes from. And there you go. Look at that. Fantastic. Oh, pepper. See, you put a little pepper on. There you go. We got to go to the nuke. We got to go to the cayenne pepper, brother. So, thief, get away from me. Stop victimizing me. The police aren't on their way because they don't believe in upholding the law against honest citizens. Ha! 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 We're teaching citizens how to defend themselves with spice because Mr. Bolapati was, I think, charged for defending his property. So we thought we'd, do a little demonstration. What do you think about that?
What I think right now, gentlemen, is that this is not appropriate.
Why is that?
Look at it. It's not appropriate. And you need to not bring that so close to my face.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Thank you very much.
So why is it not appropriate?
Because first, it's obstructing the sidewalk. All right?
Oh, really?
So I'm going to ask you to move that, please, from the sidewalk. And
but what about parsley? Is parsley appropriate for a thief?
I'm not going to get into this with you. I'm not going to do that.
How about mustard?
I'm not going to get into that with you.
Okay.
You know what? That's why we have the court system.
What about garlic?
That's
is garlic?
We have the court system, and let's let the charges play out in the court and see what the court system has to say. What I am asking you to do now
rosemary.
is
What about rosemary?
You, sir,
rosemary.
is to take
I got some other ones. Hold on a second.
You know what?
Piri,
you're not
piri.
even trying to. You're not even trying
What
to.
about piri,
you're
piri?
not even listening. You're not even listening. No, sir, you're not. You're not listening.
No, but you never
and
mentioned
you're not.
piri.
I told you already. I told you I wasn't going to discuss that.
Oh.
I was very clear on that.
Well, okay.
I said
What about,
that I would let that would go through the court
what
systems
about cinnamon?
as it should probably go. And you're having a hard time understanding me, sir.
Okay.
If this is
Bacon
yours,
bits.
Is this yours?
It's actually not mine, but I
Very
borrowed
good.
it.
Thank you very much.
Oh, okay.
All right, sir. I'm going to take that as abandoned property.
Oh,
Oops,
my.
that's too bad.
Oh,
all right.
both.
Can you please keep that? Thank you very much, sir.
Okay. Is she under arrest or? What about cayenne pepper, officer? Would red pepper be appropriate? Oh, what's her buttocks? Well,
David, I've been that cop. I've been that cop several times on this live stream where it's just like, David, you're not listening. David, you're not listening. You're not getting what I'm trying to say. I've lived a day in that life, in the life of that cop dealing with you. So I completely relate. I know that you still have that shirt. I think you should probably wear that hat once in a while just to wake up what you've got. And I am sad to find out that you have misplaced the spice rack belt, which I think would be really handy.
I think it ended up in the Sun News cafeteria for some reason, Sheila. But, the thing is, what that was all about was there was a story in Toronto, we're going back 8 years now, and it was a fellow by the name of Mr. Polapati running a restaurant. He's been broken into his premises, his cars vandalized and broken into, and he encountered one of the robbers and who was attacking him with something, and he fought back with spice because he uses spices in his dishes. And incredibly, there were charges, not against the robber, but against Mr. Pullapotty for using, I think they called it a nauseous weapon or something like that, some spice. And so that was the news peg we hung that little caper on. And it was just that, it's astonishing that female version of Sergeant Sedanko comes out and first of all says we're blocking the sidewalk. As you can see, we're not blocking the sidewalk and there's nobody on the sidewalk. And then confiscates our property, damages the property. You saw the thing falling apart. And, which led to a follow-up story of us trying to get it back from the Toronto Police Service Property Division. But it's like I said, that was comedic, but it was something that if they just gave us 5 more minutes of doing our shtick, we were going to pack it up and go away. And instead, she makes this a federal case. And it just looks so bad. And I can tell you, Sheila, to prove my point that we're not anti-law enforcement and that these are the statistical anomalies that act this way, I received several emails back then from other police officers who were A, embarrassed that this happened, and B, some had dealings in the police service with that particular lady, and all they could say is, oh, karma is rhymes with witch, because they did not like her when they served with her, and they were delighted to see that blow up in her face. So anyways, it's just, I only wish that when these bad apples are on a force, that their colleagues would rein them in, call them out, and not let them, basically besmirch the reputation of the entire police service. Oh, Sheila is frozen, much like the Lady Spice mannequin. Well, there you have it, folks. A bit of levity, and I'm sure we're getting super chats in, but that's Sheila's role to run that. Contrasting, she is back.
I'm back.
Oh,
I'm back. I'm back, sorry.
You were as lifeless as Lady Spice herself. Oh, by the way, and that was one last point on this, Sheila. When I said, what's wrong, she said it's not appropriate. I think what she meant by saying not appropriate is that it was a topless female model. But you are allowed, since the Gwen Jacob decision in 1995, as a female in Ontario, to go topless. In fact, if you go to the gay pride parade, you get the full Monty. So how is a topless inanimate object not appropriate in Toronto of 2012? And she is frozen again, If only I could do that to Lady Menzoid, just have some sort of a zap gun. It reminds me of that film, Kiss the Girls and Make Them Die. It was a 1965 film where the supervillain was trying to freeze all the females in the world. I wouldn't go that far, folks. But anyways, what I'd like to do is contrast. She's back again, Mr. Producer says. There you go.
Working remotely can be a real nightmare sometimes. I was actually just going to point out that the Toronto City Cops have no problem marching in the mostly nude pride parade, but they have a problem with your plastic lady, your silver plastic lady, which I think is kind of...
And she's gone again. She is frozen. But, to get more serious, folks, contrast how Edmonton law enforcement acted at the protests at the Edmonton legislature with how the cops acted in Toronto. It was the 3rd week of the Queen's Park protest. These are people, just average citizens coming out, in greater numbers, I might add, that are just absolutely frustrated beyond belief in terms of having their civil liberties shut down. And more to the point, they want to go back to work. They want to go back to school. There were several more people at the Queen's Park protest than the Edmonton protest. And, social distancing wasn't being maintained. But you know what? Contrary to popular belief, the Wuhan virus is not Ebola. And the people there were not 93-year-olds from long-term nursing homes with respiratory disease. What I'm getting at, folks, is that these are the primary targets statistically for this particular virus. So I would bet you a donut that nobody went home after this protest hacking and coughing and being infected. But the point is, kudos to law enforcement. They just let them have their 2.5 hours or so of venting, and then everybody went home, and there was nobody dragged off. There was nobody being written up with those $880 tickets. And if Mr. Producer has a clip ready, we'll play the evidence right now.
They're very easy to make. You take a little potato, you put a dick on it, and it becomes a dictator.
We need to come back and realize that we can't just sit in our homes. The sunlight kills this virus. There are cures for this virus. The vaccines are not the cure. We can't sit at home and wait for the vaccines.
Like, oh, come on. You couldn't figure out the flu vaccine for 30 years. Now you're going to figure this out in like 3 months? It's not going to happen.
You know how you open the province? Say open. You know how you open the city? Say open. Whoever feels safe to open, open. Whoever feels safe to go to the businesses, go to the businesses. If you want to stay home, stay home. That's called freedom and democracy. What happened to that?
And it's always going to be about who's got the loudest voice, who is going to have the most money, who's got the most to lose versus who's going to be the person who's not going to complain. And, this city is wide full of people that are saying, hey, we're okay opening to sell pizzas while the guy next door selling chicken wings is going to go broke. Who decides that?
That's what they did in Germany in 1963. This is East Germany. You don't work, you might work, you're essential, you're not essential. That happened a long time ago. And history repeats itself. If you don't understand what happened in the past, it will happen to you again, and it's happening now here in this country. Fascism is grabbing hold.
How are we ignorant? How are we not looking at the facts, asking the questions? Why is Rebel News not allowed to go interview the potato at his place? Like, how is that not allowed? We want to hear the real story.
Well, look at those yahoos out there not keeping the rank and file of the normal, how dare they drop the chain of command from the...
I love that little Justin Trudeau potato. And I believe we have Sheila Gunn-Reid joining us again. For how long? I do not know. What did you make of that protest, Sheila, especially since the context of us going there was after the first protest, Doug Ford called these people a bunch of yahoos. After the second protest, and you saw some evidence, and I saw it at the Edmonton legislative protest as well, an upside-down Canadian flag. And incredibly, Doug Ford interpreted that to mean these people are anti-military. I can tell you by talking to them, nothing could be further from the truth, Sheila.
Yeah.
And then he said, and I think this is spectacular, this is right up there with Hillary Clinton's, basket of deplorables movement, although Hillary was going after her enemies, Doug Ford was going after his base. Then he said, if you want to leave this country, I'll personally help you pack your suitcases. And what do you make of that? First of all, to misinterpret the idea that an upside-down flag is universally recognized as a sign of distress, not anti-military, and then for him to say, if you're not on the same page as me, I'm going to help you get out of Ontario, get you out of Canada. That is spectacular. And like I said, Sheila, most of these people, from when I chatted with them, voted PC in the 2018 election.
Yeah, it's a real abandonment of Doug Ford's base.
Short and sweet before she froze up again. But what Sheila said, folks, it is an abandonment of Doug Ford's base. And I think, the Premier has to be very careful. And I say this too in the context that the day before this protest happened, this is protest number 3 down at Queen's Park, evidence emerged that Doug Ford had gone to his cottage on Easter Sunday. Now, why that's significant, folks, is that when we dial it back to early April, Doug Ford publicly besieged everyone. Do not go to your cottages for the Easter weekend. We know it's a family tradition with many of you, but now's not the time. Cottage country isn't ready. Do not go. This is about safety, and safety is predominant. And then it turns out guess what? Doug Ford, like I said, on Easter Sunday, whipped up to his cottage. Now, the way they spun it is, oh, well, it was only for a few hours and it was to check to see if there was any potential damage. Fine. But why didn't he say when he did his Easter rant that don't go to your cottage unless you have repairs to check on, repairs to make? He didn't say that. It was a blanket statement which he exempted himself from. It's just like Justin Trudeau breaking the law by crossing a border to go to his cottage. And then there's John Tory, the mayor of Toronto, who goes on Twitter and brags about how many tax-paying, law-abiding citizens get these $880 social distancing tickets from bylaw and law enforcement. And yet, 2.5 weeks ago, lo and behold, there's John Tory in front of a hospital posing with 10 healthcare workers. I mean, by my math, that's over $10,000 in fines right there. But suddenly, bylaw and law enforcement, and they were there, turn a blind eye. So I think people are really getting sick and tired of this whole idea of one law for me and one law for thee. They want to get back to work. And, a couple of the individuals at the protests made some very good points. What is this picking and choosing? If Walmart and Costco and the Liquor Control Board of Ontario and the beer store can have all their stores open and sell to the public, then why not Joe's Shoe Shop? If retailers practice the same social distancing etiquette, the plastic counter at checkout, the hand sanitizer when you walk in, the taped off spaces indicating 2 meters for a lineup, a restriction on the number of people in a store, then why can't the little guy open up his shop? And the not so little guys, I mean, hey, Winners, the Bay, they're all closed down too. It makes no sense. Sheila, are you back with us, my dear?
However long I might be back with you, David, thank you for being so patient with my internet challenges out here on the tundra. We should get through some of these super chats, though.
That's right.
While I'm still here, maybe some of these super chats can go to an internet upgrade for me. Let's get through some of these. Here we go. Mike Jones gave us a super chat 20 minutes before we even went on air. He gave us $2. He said, and it's a question we all want the answer to. Menzoid, when are you cutting your hair? I'm actually surprised Lady Menzoid hasn't.
Oh, Sheila's done it again. Folks, I would never describe Sheila as frigid, but it just keeps happening today for some reason. Well, okay then, but our trained broadcast professional, Mr. Producer, is going to put some super chats on the screen, and I'll read them that way. All right, Proud Boys Calgary, $5. Thank you very much. Canada don't trust China. China is at SSHO3! Especially not with vaccines for COVID 1984. Daily reminder, CCP must be destroyed. Well, you know what? You got to be very careful what you say these days, Proud Boys Calgary. And by the way, thank you for that $5 super chat. As Brian Adams himself found out yesterday, you say something negative about China, you are a racist, apparently. We're going to get to his tweet that he sent out, which has since been deleted, of course, because the social media mob made Brian Adams bend the knee on that one. But I thank you for your super chat. Sheila is back. I thought.
So frustrating. So frustrating, David. What a nightmare today is turning out to be.
Are you as frustrated as that police officer when I was pouring all those spices on the mannequin, Sheila?
Oh, God, that woman. Anyways, let's get through this while I'm still here.
Go for it.
We've got Dame of the Dammit gives us $20 Canadian, says TB is rampant in prisons and prisoners aren't released. Why is COVID bodily harm if the harm is transient? By the way, Menzoid cornrows would look good. He's there. He's ready for a braid. Yeah, isn't that funny? I actually saw an article in Breitbart today, and it was detailing prisoners in prisons who are actively trying to catch the coronavirus so that they can be released. It's funny. It's funny how the federal government is making a new class of crimes for gun owners to put us all in prison while they're emptying out, in some instances, triple murderers from Hamilton, letting them out onto the streets because the coronavirus might make them a little sicky. So,
Sheila, not just gun owners, as we know from Fight the Fines, people sitting on park benches, families inline skating in a deserted parking lot, somebody walking through a park by himself, metal detecting. Those are the new criminals. But like you said, somebody who has actually committed violent crime, go away. Hey, what could happen?
We've got one from Vince, Alex Geo. Sorry, David, to cut you off. I'm just trying to get through these while I'm still here. We've got one from Vince Axis Geo, $20.20 Canadian. Thanks to the pandemic, some secrets about Rebel staff has become public. David has played midget hockey and Kian is a curler and was in a 4-H beef club showing steers. But Sheila has kept her secrets secret. Yeah, a little bit. I mean, that's not true. I'm kind of an open book. If you are on my Twitter, you'll see photos of like my everyday life, the things that are happening around the farm. Also over on my Instagram, my Instagram is actually not very political. It's more like a slice of homestead life. But yeah, David did play midget hockey. And from what I understand, Kian was a hell of a 4-H'er. And I think he still judges 4-H speaking contests. So, yeah, he hasn't strayed far from his roots.
You know, I'm just shattered by the inappropriate language here, Sheila. Didn't you get the memo? We can't call it midget hockey anymore. That's offensive to people that we once called midgets and now we call little people. Do you think little people is a better name than I mean, like, I'm so confused, Sheila.
I just think it's like a terrible choice of words. If you're going to move away from midgets into something more, I don't know, whatever, medical or whatever, I don't know if little people is the right term, like short in stature, short people. Like, I don't know how little people became the word, but maybe they chose it for themselves.
And if you drive an MG midget, are we supposed to get some duct tape and tape over the midget name? I mean, I don't know.
We've got one from Oscar Lance, gives us $20 Canadian. I don't see a super chat or a question or a query, but boy, that's very generous. Thank you so much. We've got one from Jose Sanzana. I hope I'm right about that. Gives us $20.99 Canadian. Never mind wearing a mask. Could Trudeau just put a paper bag over his head so the nation can't see his face when he does his morning audition for the Trudeau Netflix series? Every day he looks more and more like the dad who is staying in his buddy's basement, sleeping on the couch because his wife left him and he sees his kids every other weekend. Like, that's every day he starts to look more and more like that guy. He's like part hobo, part disheveled, but he's thinking he looks good. I don't know what's happening there, but I think he's had somebody sneak in to dye his hair at some point. You know what Sheila, I mean?
What do you think is going on with that look? I mean, is it that he just really doesn't care anymore? Or are his handlers saying, listen, try to look disheveled, try to look like you've been in the trenches in World War I for 3 years to set an example for Canadians? Like he has all these hangers on, he has image consultants, he has PR spin doctors. I'm wondering if he's being directed to convey that look.
I don't know. Maybe he's trying to be like a regular person and regular people are, working from home in sweatpants. And I'm not saying that I'm working from home in sweatpants or not. But why does his style so have to drastically change? Like, why? I dressed this way before the pandemic. I dress this way now. You dress a certain way for work that's different than how I dress. Why did his style suddenly, instantly change once the virus came? He went from being this guy who wore impeccably tailored suits and showed off his socks all the time to this guy who looks like he reminds me some days of those, like, how when the settlers came to the prairie and they were moving across the prairie on the chuck wagons and they would wear like all their clothes at once because they didn't have luggage. That's what he looks like when you look, and it's like, does he have 3 collared shirts on and a sweater and a jacket and it's, 19 degrees out? Is he moving to a homestead on the prairie? Because that's how he's dressing. I don't understand any of it.
Oh, no, Sheila, just to let you know, it is certainly not 19 degrees in Ontario right now. We are having record-breaking low temperatures, single digits in the day, minus temperatures at night. Another reason I think why all the climate global warming hucksters are like Suzuki and Thunberg and Gore have really kept their heads down during this pandemic when it comes to the global warming situation. I mean, listen, at this time of the year, I'd love to ride my bike to work, but I can't right now. I'd freeze the ball bearings off. Anyways, I think Mr. Producer mentioned that we have another super chat that he wants me to read because we missed it. From David Koziar, $5 Canadian. Thank you very much, sir. Love that Tucker Carlson sticker you have on the laptop, Sheila. Where can I get one? Also, what do you think of his reporting lately? What do you say, Sheila?
Well, I'm a big fan of Tucker. Obviously, I also have a T-shirt that matches the sticker there. I actually got it on Redbubble, and that's a website that a lot of independent graphic designers and artists use. So you can find some interesting T-shirts and sticker designs. And they seem sort of free speechy. They have people on the far left and people on the far right. So you can find some interesting conservative stuff there. So yeah, if you're looking for cool stickers, cool T-shirts, head there. But also if you're looking for a cool sticker, why don't you head over to the Rebel store and pick up a COVID-19 84 sticker? And actually, maybe I should order one from the office so that I have one on my laptop or laptops. How's that for a plug for the business? Also, with regard to Tucker's reporting, there's a reason why Fox News is the most popular, most watched news broadcast on the planet, really. And it's because they do dig into things and say things that the other networks are afraid to say or just won't say because it doesn't fit the agenda. And I think that Tucker has done some great reporting with regard to the Wuhan flu. He's sort of been the first person to dig into what was going on at the Institute of Virology in Wuhan. And he's been the first really person in, on the major networks that has been talking about how this virus came from bats, but they didn't have those sorts of bats being sold at the wet market. And, it's just stuff that the other networks aren't willing to report or are scared to report or just don't want to anger China. And he doesn't care about those sorts of things, I don't think.
Yeah, I love Tucker too. And the finest moment was when Stephen LeDrew was on his show arguing how Canada had free speech and how we in Canada, like the US, we use a 26-letter long acronym to describe the LBGTQII. And within hours of that airing, Stephen LeDrew is fired from Bell Media after spending over 20 years there. That was fantastic. Anyway,
Tucker,
Sheila.
he can make a career, he can break a career, can't he? Okay, we've got one from Debachi, gives us $5 Canadian, says, so if the coronavirus is so deadly as they keep reporting, why hasn't the government issued a mass recall of meat from Cargill meat manufacturers? Well, I think it's because it's not transmittable through like food in that manner. But the Cargill outbreak is almost all recovered. We're 2 weeks out from it. And if you look because Alberta has these interactive graphs that the government posts, you can actually track. We were on the way down, then the Cargill outbreak happened, and now we're on the way back down again. So it's like 2 weeks out from the Cargill outbreak. But that hasn't stopped Rachel Notley for calling for the complete shutdown of all the meatpacking plants in Alberta, which would, of course, absolutely devastate the farming community and cause meat shortages and price spikes at the grocery store because I guess the NDP, they used to think they were the, the party of the working man, but now they're just the party of the unions. So the unions want these plants shut down while the union continues to get paid. And in the meantime, devastating the beef industry and robbing consumers at the tills.
That is amazing. And I would assume, I don't know this for a fact, but wouldn't the cooking process, Sheila, kill off any kind of pathogens? You know, I mean, I don't think you're eating raw meat. And I assume Cargill, if you believe this theory, they're not slaughtering bats at this packing plant. So it's actually cows and pigs and whatnot. And so, by the way, that reminds me of a little line. If you want to ever have fun and when you're at the supermarket, go to the meat counter, right? And you look at the guy who's on the other side of the counter, and you know what you say to him, Sheila? You go, "You butcher." Sometimes I get it, sometimes not.
Nobody gets it, David.
Oh, did that go over your head there?
No, it didn't. It's just, I don't know.
Continue, my friend.
It's funny for me to laugh at them. We've got one from Annalisa S. You know what? This is the, after that bomb of a joke, this is the compliment you need, David. She gives us $13.99 Canadian, and she's admitting that she needs her eyes checked, but you know what? Whatever. She says, "You're looking very sexy today, Menzies. Keep up the great work to you both."
Oh,
There's no accounting for taste.
That's so kind. And if you could send along a pic so I could do a critique of
David,
you, I would be much appreciated. And
we're going to keep going through the super chat.
Maybe get it made into a little wallet-size photo. Anyway.
Show. Okay, Alan Maynard gives us $2.79 Canadian, says Stephanie Carriere for Prime Minister. You sent that super chat last week. You're obviously a big fan of Stefan. Don't know who that is, but I'm sure they appreciate your support. We've got one from the CKPWN, gives us $5 Canadian. We want to see the Spice Girls saga. Do defend us on Today Age. Canadians aren't asking too much. We've got one from Observer Dude, gives us £5. I recently watched the video where David got banned from a white privilege conference, and I have to ask, what was that all about?
Oh, yeah, that was from, I think, 2 years ago, Sheila. Not only was I banned from a white privilege conference, but the venue for the white privilege conference was Ryerson University, which is where, and I'm alumnus of Ryerson University. This is where I went to study the craft of journalism in the early 80s. And it was amazing because the privilege that was happening there was the fact that if you were white or if you were the wrong kind of visible minority, i.e. on the right side of the spectrum, you were banned. So really, it was the people at the conference demonstrating a racist attitude. It was absolutely spectacular, and that happened in Toronto in 2018. Welcome to my nightmare, folks.
We've got one from Paul Drake, gives us $5 Canadian, says, been sending Ezra super chats all week to bring his numbers up to yours. Didn't work, though. Keep up the good fight. Can't wait for you guys to go scrum. I'm assuming you mean scrum the Prime Minister. Yeah, wouldn't that be great? Yes, friends at home, David and I are actually much better at earning super chats than the boss, Ezra Levant. And let me just say that that's not a swipe at the boss. It actually speaks to how great he is at identifying and cultivating talent like David and myself. But if you'd like to help us keep the good thing going, do donate in those super chats so that David and I can show the boss that, yeah, we're working hard, we're earning money for the company, and we're keeping us all afloat during this COVID pandemic.
Absolutely. Oh, and Sheila, our Mr. Producer just told me we missed one. He's going to put it on the screen for me to read.
Okay, perfect.
Travis Colson donates Canadian dollars $6.99. Not saying the virus is not real, but I don't know anyone that has it. I don't even know a guy that knows someone who has it. Well, Travis, I can tell you this, it hasn't been posted yet, but on Thursday, I interviewed a doctor. It's a very telling interview. We've had to conceal his identity, much like my interview last month with a nurse who was going out of her mind with boredom at the hospital she works in because she is literally doing nothing and is being sent home with pay. Similarly, this doctor has experienced on several occasions something he has never experienced in his medical career, and he's been in the medicine business for decades. That is, Sheila, going into the hospital, putting in a 14-hour shift, and not seeing a single patient. Now, you might think, oh, hallelujah, everyone is alive and well in Ontario. No, people with elective surgery have been banned from coming into these hospitals, and there's now cases of those people on elective surgery lists dying because they didn't get, for example, on a very important cardiac procedure. I mean, this isn't about people, when you say elective surgery, Sheila, I think some people might assume, oh, that's somebody waiting for a nose job or something. No. These are very serious cases, and he is sick and tired of this. He himself has said that this is not Ebola, that the Swedish model was the best idea in terms of having a herd immunity happen. And let's be honest, Sheila, you can go to a restaurant in Sweden, there's social distancing, but their cases have not blown up exponentially at all. And he wants to see the hospitals open up for people that are non-COVID-19 related to come in and get these procedures done, because otherwise there'll be more people dying that way. That avalanche of cases that those models indicated never happened. We have learned one thing for sure, Sheila: models are not data. And now the narrative is, well, we got to be still as diligent as ever because this second wave might be the avalanche. But I'm telling you, folks, I've been talking to nurses, I've been talking to doctors, and they are saying that is not the lay of the land. This is, I don't know if it's intentional fear-mongering. I think, I'm going to give the people that make these models the benefit of the doubt. They don't care about economic factors. They don't care about even mental health factors. They're just saying that in a global pandemic, this is potentially the worst case that can happen, and it hasn't happened. Like I said, this is not Ebola, and we know the disproportionate amount of people that are getting this and dying from it are elderly. They're in long-term care facilities. They've got respiratory illness. You look at the number of people the world over, Sheila, that are young and healthy, or even relatively young and healthy, and it's not even a rounding error.
Yeah, I'm just bringing up on my phone. Trust me, I'm not texting anybody. The data for the COVID-19 deaths in Alberta, and I'm not being fast enough here. We've had 117 deaths in Alberta. We've had 6,300 cases in total. We've already seen about 2/3 of those people recover. So according to the latest data updated yesterday, nearly 4,700 people have already recovered from this. We only have 1,524 active cases. Of those deaths, it sounds like about 82 or 84, I think, were in nursing homes. So this is not affecting healthy people in the same way that it is affecting the elderly. And you can see this play, several things have played out when you look at New York versus Florida. New York, with their Democrat governor, has been championed as, Governor Cuomo has been brave and working hard in the face of this devastating disease in his city, but from like the outside looking in, he's completely mishandled this.
Yep.
He sent COVID-19 patients to the nursing homes. Transmission in crowded city, in like keeping people off the streets in crowded quarters. The fact that the city itself is anti-car, which forces everybody into crowded subways to go to work, and that spread there. But yet still, underutilized hospital facilities like at the Javits Center and the military hospital ship that came was completely underutilized, and then it just left. But still, major deaths and major transmission. Now, if you look at Florida, where all of New York's old people actually are, with their Republican governor, largely criticized for opening up the beaches by the mainstream media. But they implemented early daily testing in the nursing homes for the people who are going into the nursing homes to work, because that's how the transmission to the nursing homes was happening. And we saw that firsthand here in Alberta. We had people working in one nursing home and then working in another nursing home and then spreading the disease. It's not the old people spreading the disease. How can they get it if they can't leave the nursing home? It's the people coming into work. So what the governor in Florida did was implemented daily testing and basically cut the nursing home deaths down to next to nothing, protected the vulnerable, and let the other people out to live their lives. And it's funny how we're seeing, like, the media really wants a one-size-fits-all solution to this, and it can't be that way. Because how life is lived out here in the middle of nowhere in Alberta is much different than how it's lived in Toronto or New York. And there should have been some early on recognition of that, and it would have made a hell of a lot of difference in people's lives and in their pocketbooks.
You know, Sheila, what you're saying is 100% true. You're making my blood boil because, like you said, the media narrative is to mock and criticize Florida, whereas with Cuomo, he is looked upon as a hard-done hero fighting against the evil Trump administration. Everything, even this global pandemic, even with people dying, is reported through the lens of the 2020 American election. And you, when you were going through the litany of Cuomo mistakes, you forgot to mention, Sheila, that the federal funds that were given, I think going back several months, maybe over a year ago, that were meant to go towards buying thousands of ventilators, because remember, that was the big issue originally. Well, Cuomo put that money towards solar panels and windmills. He misspent that money, and yet Cuomo is the hero. Robert De Niro is going to be playing Cuomo in a movie about how the pandemic has been handled, with Cuomo as the good guy, the competent guy, and Trump as the ignorant, evil buffoon responsible for so many deaths. Sheila, when the mainstream media wonders why, like you said, Fox is leading the ratings and why they are losing millions and millions of dollars and going out of business and they're tuned out, well, look in the mirror, guys. Another super chat for you, Sheila.
Yes, we've got a few super chats to get through, and then we have something very important to talk about because we want our viewers from this live stream to stick with us on the Rebel YouTube page because we've got a major announcement coming.
That's right.
Right?
Yes.
We've got something exciting to talk about. So we've got one from Denis Paymont, $5 Canadian. I ordered a Make Canada Great Again from your website. Strangely, didn't pass the Quebec border. Still waiting.
Holy Reddy Levesque.
I did a little test. That could be a Canada Post thing. I sent something to the office from Alberta here, and I think it just arrived, and that was like almost 10 days ago. So could be Canada Post, could be those fishy Quebecois. We've got one from Proud Boys Calgary, gives us $2 Canadian. Shameless plug, join Proud Boys, proudboyscanada.com. Crafty, Justin. We've got Unjust Untrudeau, gives us $5 Canadian. Saskatchewan will report the age groups of our whole 6 deaths from the COVID, or if underlying conditions. I've submitted an access to info request to get that. good luck to you getting that. It's hard to get your hands on health demographic information when you file access to information. Although if you're just asking for the bulk numbers, you might get it. But yeah, it's at least in Alberta, they're being transparent about the age groups of the people who are contracting this disease and then dying from it. But it sure looks like healthy people like me and like David, we would be doing okay. And but yet we can't go to work.
Well,
and
I'm not 100% healthy, Sheila. I, as part of my video segment of the wall coming down at Hyde Park to allow Torontonians to smell the cherry blossom trees, I ended it with me skipping into the sunset. And what an inglorious way to pull a muscle. I've been lifting.
No.
So much
The
for flower
COVID
power.
lifestyle
But anyways,
got you.
I digress. Go ahead.
No, I think we're all caught up on our super chat. So whatever's next on our list to talk about, let's get to it.
Well, you know what? Oh, Mr. Producer says we've got 5 minutes left. My goodness, Sheila, even when you freeze up and disappear on me, this hour goes so quickly. So we should tell our folks about a Clarion Project video that is going to actually premiere, I believe, at the end of the show, but we have a teaser clip for you right now. Check it out.
I lived a very tumultuous life as a teenager. I ran away at the age of 16 after a child abuse in the home and was on the streets living as a hippie, sort of practicing far leftist counterculture ideology, trying to stay away from society at large. In the course of that, I developed drug habits and was doing illicit things to survive, not knowing how to process the trauma that I was that I had endured, and throwing myself out there, basically hated the person that I was born. And so Islam offered me this new person. My conversion occurred in Philadelphia, but the day after I converted, I was arrested in Richmond, Virginia. I was there for about 2 months. It was a drug charge. When I was incarcerated, I met a veteran of the Afghan-Soviet jihad who radicalized me in prison and gave me a new name, Yunus Abdullah Muhammad, commanding me to leave the facility and go call the people to Islam, and letting me know that an end of times battle between the kuffar, the non-Muslims, and the Muslims was nigh. And then 9/11 came about. And it seemed as if what Hassan was telling me was certainly prophecy or prophetic. And when the statement was made, you're either with us or you're with the terrorists, I chose the terrorists.
You know, it's an incredible story. It is going to premiere on our YouTube channel right after we get off the air. And Sheila, this, of course, is the individual who threatened the South Park creators. Remember the famous Muhammad episode, episode number 201, if memory serves, which you really can't find anymore. It's like it never existed. But there's a good news story to this. He sees the light and he goes from being a threatening person to actually working with law enforcement to find other people who are handing out the threats in the current day and age. So it's a wonderful video from the Clarion Project, and well worth your time in checking out, folks.
Right. That person there, his name is Jesse Morton. He was directly, or at least tangentially, responsible for terror attacks and threats. And he admits that. And the fact that he is speaking out now, coming out the other side. So he took the general path into bad idea genes. He went from leftist politics into drugs, prison, and then into Islam, and radicalized Islam. And now that he's speaking out, he's putting a target on his back. So what he's doing here is very brave. Clarion is telling his story. For those of you who don't know, Clarion is a nonprofit that educates the public about the dangers of ideological extremism. So they are doing very important work. They catalog this stuff. They produce videos and documentaries that are seen by millions to tell the truth about how people get radicalized, the things they do when they're radicalized, and in Jesse's case, how they came out the other side. So that video by the Clarion Project is premiering on the Rebel YouTube channel I think right after we're done. So don't get off the channel.
Yeah.
Just move over to the next video so that you don't miss that, because it is such an important story.
And you know what, Sheila, as a side note, he's certainly way more brave than those networks out there that simply will not air that cartoon. I mean, can you imagine? They've been made to bend the knee in terms of existential threats and political correctness so that they won't air that South Park episode. It's just, what a disgrace. But this is the world we live in, isn't it?
Well, yes, and let me make one more plug for our YouTube channel, because if people are subscribed and if they ring that little bell so they never miss a video, they will be sure to see more interesting stuff like this Clarion video premiering on our channel in the very near future. So do yourself a favor, ring that little bell. Oh, one last super chat
for you, Sheila.
I see it. We've got one from Theo, the local loner, gives us £5. The leftists have said that the Pakistani grooming gangs in the UK are actually white men. What's your response to that? I don't know. I have eyeballs. I can actually see. I can read their Pakistani last names, and I can read the testimony of the young girls who have testified against them about who exactly the perpetrators were. So while the leftists want to say that this was not Pakistani grooming gangs, I don't think they're doing anybody any favors, especially the victims, when they try to obscure who the real perpetrators are.
Sheila, maybe they're identifying as white men as they carry out their heinous acts.
You can do whatever you want these days.
I've got. Anyways. Well, Mr. Producer is doing this with his finger in the air. Either that means I'm crazy or we're out of time. Once again, one more super chat, evidently. That's what that Helen Keller signaling means. So go for it, Sheila.
Agent Orange gives us $2 Canadian, and there's no super chat there, but a very generous donation right under the wire. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Agent Orange. Well, there you go, folks. We are plumb out of time. So on behalf of Sheila Gunn-Reid, somewhere in the hinterland of Northern Alberta, and me, David Menzies, at the Rebel headquarters in Toronto, thanks so much for tuning in. Have a great day. Stay tuned for that Clarion Project video, and stay safe.